Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into a really fascinating story, a real paradox actually, China's massive ice cream market. Because for some it's an absolute gold rush, but for the old giants, it's looking more like a meltdown. So first things first, let's just wrap our heads around the sheer scale we're talking about. In 2024, China's ice cream market is projected to hit 137.4 billion RMB. That makes it, hands down, the largest ice cream market on the entire planet. But a number that big, well, it brings up a really important question. Right, it's the biggest, but is it actually a good business? You know, just because a market is huge doesn't automatically mean it's easy to make a profit. And this is where the whole story gets really, really interesting. And here's why it's such a puzzle. Because if you just look at it on paper, the business model for a fresh, made-to-order ice cream shop looks, well, it looks almost perfect. In fact, it looks way, way better than another booming industry you're probably pretty familiar with. Let's put this into perspective and compare it to the world of new wave bubble tea. Everybody knows how incredibly competitive and cutthroat that business is, right? Well, when you actually stack the numbers up side by side, ice cream comes out looking like an absolute dream. Okay, now these numbers, they really tell the story. Just look at the gross margin for ice cream, 65 to 70%. Compare that to tea, which is often struggling to hit 50. Then look at staffing. You need, what, half the people to run the place? But here's the real kicker, the number that has everyone excited, that net profit margin. We're talking 30 to 40%. That's potentially double, maybe even triple what a good tea shop is making. It's insane. In fact, there's a name for this in the industry. They call it the 3 highs, 1 low model. You've got high gross margin, high labor efficiency, high sales per square meter, and a really low break-even point. It sounds like a license to print money, doesn't it? But, and you knew there was a but coming, there is a major catch. And yeah, it's a big one. This is the Achilles heel, the hidden flaw in that beautiful business plan. It's what we're calling the low-frequency problem. See, this incredible 30 to 40% net profit, that's the prize. That's the shiny object that's pulling everyone into this gold rush. But actually getting your hands on that profit? It is a whole lot harder than it looks on paper. And here's the simple reason why. Just think about your own habits for a second. How often do you grab a coffee or a tea? Maybe every day, right? Or at least a few times a week. Now, how often do you buy an ice cream cone? It's a treat, it's an occasional thing, maybe once a month, if that. The consumption frequency can be less than 1/10 of teas. And that simple fact, well, it changes absolutely everything. What this does is it creates this massive scaling bottleneck. A coffee shop can build a solid business on a few hundred regulars who live or work nearby. An ice cream shop just can't. It is completely dependent on a constant, massive river of new customers, people making an impulse buy, and that puts all the pressure on one single thing. And it all leads to this one unavoidable conclusion. In the fresh ice cream business, location isn't just important. It's not just part of the puzzle. It's basically the entire game. You have to be in one of those top-tier, prime leisure spots with insane foot traffic. Otherwise, you're toast. Okay, so you might be wondering, if it's that hard, why is everyone rushing in now? Well, this whole opportunity really exists for one simple reason. The old guard, the established giants of the industry, are in a complete and total meltdown. And I'm not exaggerating. This chart lays out the crisis in black and white. Just look at the first half of 2024. Revenue for these legacy brands absolutely cratered. Yili's cold drinks business, down over 20%. Mengniu's, down almost 22%. Folks, this isn't just a bad quarter. This is a sign of a deep structural collapse. So what on earth is going on? Well, it all comes down to a huge cultural shift. This quote really says it all. Brands like Häagen-Dazs are being demystified. China's Gen Z is incredibly culturally confident. They are not impressed by the same old status symbols anymore. They're not buying a logo. They're buying an experience. They're buying it for the taste. So what do they want then? The data here is crystal clear. Look at this. A whopping 62% say they want to try new, interesting flavors.
61% see it as a personal reward, a way to treat yourself. And right up there with them, 60% are actively looking for healthier ingredients. The old guard, they're just not delivering on any of this. Now, to figure out where China's market might be headed, we can look to its neighbor for a really amazing historical parallel. Japan's ice cream industry went through a crisis that looks eerily similar, and it offers some powerful lessons for what could happen next. So after hitting its peak way back in 1994, Japan's market entered what's known as its lost decade. As you can see, innovation just stalled. Distribution networks started to fall apart, and by 2003, the market had crashed by almost a quarter. The parallels to what's happening to China's big brands today are kind of uncanny. But here's the thing. In the middle of all that chaos, some brands didn't just survive. They figured out how to thrive. Baskin-Robbins is a fascinating case study. They basically use a two-pronged attack to win over Japan. First, they went all in on localization, creating unique flavors like matcha, even collaborating with beloved Japanese IP like Super Mario. Second, and this might be the most important part, they built what they called a family-style franchise system. They actually supported their partners through the tough times, instead of just squeezing them for profit. They became more than a product. They became a symbol of happiness. Haagen-Dazs, on the other hand, played a completely different game. They saw that their expensive store model just wasn't working anymore, so they made a brilliant strategic retreat. They closed their shops, leveraged all that incredible premium brand equity they had built up, and pivoted to become the absolute undisputed king of high-end ice cream in supermarkets. It was a masterclass in turning a retreat into a new kind of victory. So, what does all this mean for China today? It means the game has completely changed. The market has entered what industry watchers are calling the third wave, and the old rulebook has basically been thrown out the window. And this third wave isn't just some marketing buzzword. It's a fundamental shift in what consumers actually value. It's a move away from the mass-produced, industrial stuff of the past and towards these fresh, healthy, high-end brands that are selling an emotional connection. They're selling an experience, not just a frozen dessert. And this is what that future looks like. The winning brands are going to have to embrace this tea-ification of their products, constant new seasonal flavors. They're going to go hyper-local, using unique ingredients you wouldn't expect, like rice or even chili. They'll push the health angle even further, moving to zero-fat sorbets and clean labels. But most importantly, they have to build a brand that is a part of the culture, something that connects with people's identity. Which brings us right back to the final big question. In this super crowded, fast-moving gold rush, simply having a great product with amazing margins, it's just not going to be enough. The ultimate winner will be the brand that figures out how to go beyond the freezer and become China's next symbol of happiness.